Hey friends, Ash here. Welcome back to Gents. Hope that you're doing well. Today we're talking about a new fragrance release from the house of Prada, their newest Luna Rossa Ocean fragrance, their newest flanker, Luna Rossa Ocean Le Parfum. So now we have the Eau de Toilette, the Eau de Parfum, and Le Parfum. Couldn't just name it Parfum. Had to put the Le. So this is available at Macy's and other retailers in the US, and it is a little pricey. $175 is the retail price for a 100 ml size bottle. Compare that to the Eau de Parfum, that was $140 for a 100 ml size bottle, and the Eau de Toilette, $120. This is just how it goes nowadays. Eau de Toilette comes out and you go, oh, that's a reasonable price point, that makes sense. Eau de Parfum, a bit more expensive, and you go, that's okay, I guess. Then you get hit with the Parfum or the Elixir, which is where the brand just full on flips you off and they're like, give me your money, loser. And that's what this is. So yeah, this came in the mail yesterday. I actually bought mine from Dillard's because Dillard's, I think, was the first website that had it up, or at least that I noticed. And then it popped up at pretty much all the other ones like the day after I placed my order. Good old Dillard's. Ground shipping only. So like usual, guys, what we're gonna do here is take a look at the presentation, and I'll let you know kind of how this one smells to me, whether it's worth checking out or not. And I'll have it linked in the description below should you want to check it out down there. And then I'll probably also link the other Luna Rossa Oceans or something. So you'll probably also see that down there too. Let's begin by taking a closer look at the box. Here on the front, you have the name of the house, name of the fragrance, size, and concentration. Again, Le Parfum is the concentration and 100 ml size. On the side, you'll see that your bottle is refillable, but the refill is sold separately. On another side, you have a QR code where you can scan to enter the Luna Rossa experience. This is something that's becoming very popular for brands to do, to put a QR code on the box, and then it takes you to a website for the fragrance. First fragrance I can remember really making a big deal about something like this, the QR code, was actually Paco Rabanne's Phantom. That wasn't so much a QR code, it was you would hold your phone on top of the bottle and it would take you to the Phantom website. Then they switched everything to QR codes, and that's become much more popular as time has gone on. On the back, you have a lot of information, including your ingredients and the typical caution info. Then on the bottom of the box, you have your batch code. Mine is 38XN00D. And here we have the bottle. I actually really like the look of this one. So you have a gradient here, kind of a red gradient up toward the top that goes toward a very dark blue at the bottom, almost black. You have there on the front, name of the house, name of the fragrance, concentration, all of that stuff. And on the bottom, a sticker with your batch code. Of course, the atomizer is built in, as with all the Luna Rossa fragrances. And when you first get it, it will come with a little bitty plastic piece that fits over top of the bottle like that. That way it doesn't spray out in transit. And what does it say here? Reposition when carrying. Remove before use. So if you want to take your bottle somewhere, throw it in a bag, I guess, without a box or anything like that, you can just toss this on top and prevent it from spraying out. I imagine though that most people, when they get this in, they take this off and just throw it away. Let's spray a couple sprays. Let's do it. Or 3. Atomizer is good as always. Before we jump into the smell itself, quick bit of self-promotion. My fragrances have begun popping up at Amazon.uk. So if you're in the UK, you can purchase them there now. So quick reminder, my fragrances over here, South Slope, Jet Black Enigma, Terra Nova, West Loop, and Edgewater, those are fragrances I creatively directed underneath the Michael Malone brand. There are more videos on the channel where I go in more depth on those, more detail. So basically, South Slope is a blue fragrance made for compliments year-round use. West Loop, a little bit more of a sweet type of scent profile, but also made for compliments in year-round use. Edgewater is more green for spring. Enigma, more fall and winter, spicy, woody. And Terra Nova, just kind of like a classy, gentlemanly fragrance that also has year-round versatility. And I am working on a couple new ones. We'll see when those get done. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. And also, of course, they're available at every Perfumania and fragrance outlet store in the United States if you want to go inside and check them out into a store, and available linked below at Michael Malone's website. Okay, let's talk fragrance. Let's do it. At this point, Prada Luna Rossa Ocean is Prada's best-selling men's fragrance, and it ain't close. So the Eau de Toilette, the Eau de Parfum versions of Luna Rossa Ocean, that's really what has the market share for Prada in the men's fragrance realm, which is why you're seeing yet another Luna Rossa Ocean pop out. Instead of, say, something new, something in the Prada L'Homme line, which is basically abandoned, it feels like, or even a new Luna Rossa flanker that's not Ocean, or a new line. No, right now, Luna Rossa Ocean is what's doing it for them. That's why we got this. And I would say Luna Rossa Ocean, Eau de Toilette, and Eau de Parfum are very solid blue fragrances done in the Prada style, which means they're not as aggressively sweet or just aggressive in general compared to some of the other very popular blue fragrances out there. They've got a nice little classiness to them, and they have that clean Prada edge that you would expect. This one, Luna Rossa Ocean Le Parfum, opens with a little bit of citrus, but not too terribly much. It's sharp for a split second with the citrus, but then it settles in pretty quickly to more of a warm, kind of sweet scent profile with saffron making itself known pretty early on. You get an ambery warmth pretty quickly on. And this one, even though it's named Luna Rossa Ocean, is not an aquatic fragrance. There's really nothing here that is watery, aquatic, nothing really in that style, which I'm not saying that as a shot or anything like that. This is the Le Parfum edition, and typically with fragrance lines, as the fragrance line progresses, you know, and you get those parfums and elixirs and stuff like that that comes out down the road. Not that elixir is a concentration, it isn't, but you know what I'm talking about. As that happens, typically the fragrances will get a little bit bolder, a little bit deeper, a little bit richer, usually not quite as fresh, so that's expected. So yeah, you get some of that saffron sweetness. Iris was a note that was in this when it was first announced, but now it looks like that's been removed from all the note listings that you can find. Like if you go to Macy's and look at the note breakdown there, or any of the typical fragrance database websites, it's not there anymore. And that makes sense when you smell the fragrance, because there's not really a whole heck of a lot of anything that would be construed as iris. As the fragrance dries down a little bit more, the woodiness comes out. So oak is a note here in the base, as well as amber extreme. And oak is a wood note that when that's put into a fragrance in oak accord, it's typically gonna have a bit of a smokiness to it. And this has a little bit of that smokiness, also kind of a leathery aspect to it as well. And there are times as this dries down, specifically through the mid and into the dry down, where the sweetness, the way that it comes across, depending on what you key in on, could come across a multitude of different ways. I know that doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense, so I'll try to explain. So for some people, when they smell this through the mid into the dry down, the way the sweetness hits with that oak and the amber extreme that's in the base here, it's gonna remind you of the way that like a sweet tobacco accord could come across in some other fragrances. So for some people, they're gonna smell this and be like, oh, you could put tobacco in the note breakdown here and I would totally get that. And actually, I get that too. Like as it heads through the mid, I'm like, oh, if they wanted to, they could put tobacco as a note in the fragrance here and not too many people would say anything otherwise. They'd be like, oh, it's a nice little sweet tobacco kind of thing going on there. Whereas with some other people, they won't get that, and instead they'll be like, oh, it's kind of a leathery amber fragrance where the amber has a decent amount of sweetness, not too much, but a little bit. So like leather, amber, sweet, lightly smoky, but no tobacco, none of that. So yeah. Hey guys, just wanted to do a quick update because I realized that I did not mention something in the first impressions video that I think should be mentioned. And that is that in the far dry down, we're talking hours in, not just like 1 hour, 2 hours, like multiple hours into the wearing of this fragrance. It does take on a little bit of a soapy, semi-powdery feel to it. You still have like the woody remnants and everything from the first part of the dry down in there still, and you have a little hint of that sweetness, not as much. But in the far dry down of this one, when it does get that little bit of a soapy, slightly soapy feel to it, you could at that point tie this one in to smelling more similarly to Luna Rossa Ocean Eau de Parfum and far dry down. They're not the same fragrance still. It's not like the exact same thing going on between the two, but that is where a little more of a similarity comes out in the far dry down of this one. So I wanted to bring that up because if you have this one on and you're like 5-6 hours in, you go for a sniff, you're gonna catch that Prada DNA right there in the far dry down. All right, back to me, goodbye. Basically, this is gonna be one of those scents where I feel like it's gonna remind people of 100 different fragrances, but it doesn't actually smell like any of them. And that has been something that's happened a lot here lately. At the same time though, when you say that, you're like, well, yeah, it's kind of similar to a bunch of things, but if it doesn't smell exactly like any of them, that means it's kind of doing its own thing, right? So I would imagine you'll see a lot of that too as time goes on. And again, these are just first impressions. I got this in yesterday, so keep that in mind. I've only been able to wear it a grand total of like twice. But I could see that being something with this, where you know, somebody goes, oh, well, to me, you know, it's a little too similar to other stuff. And it's like, well, what? And you go, like 15 other things, but not exactly like any of them. So what's gonna end up happening, especially here initially, and this happens a lot with new releases, so, you know, do keep that in mind, but you're gonna see probably a bunch of different fragrances compared to this one. But then if you kind of zoom out and you compare those fragrances that are getting compared to this one, you'll be like, those aren't actually that similar. So how does that work? Now, just as an example, these aren't fragrances that have been compared to this one, but just to kind of give you guys an example so you know what I'm talking about. Let's say there's a new fragrance that comes out, okay? And then you have one person who says, oh, you know, this reminds me of the one Eau de Parfum. And then somebody else goes, this reminds me of Allure Homme Sport from Chanel. And then yet another person goes, it reminds me of Mancera Citra Boisé. At that point, you look at those three fragrances and you're like, those don't smell anything similar. Like those, I would never get confused about that's that one or that's this one, right? So if you got a whole bunch of people saying, this reminds me of this, but then those fragrances that remind them of this fragrance are not that similar, it lets you know, well, maybe are we at this point just trying to reach and say, oh, it reminds me of this because I want to be able to tell people, hey guys, I'm pretty sure it's just this. It's similar to that. Because that happens a lot with fragrances. I'm guilty of it too. I'm not saying I'm not, but it is something that sometimes happens with new releases where everybody tries to immediately jump out and say, well, I smelled it, and I'll tell you what, it smells like that fragrance if you change this, and this, just because they want to be able to like put the stamp on it. I called it, it's that one, it smells like that one. And like I said, I'm guilty of this too. I try sometimes to like catch myself if I'm doing that, but I'm guilty of it too. So anyway, back to the fragrance. Bit of a ramble. Quick breakdown, quick recap of this scent. Tiny touch of citrus in the opening, a little bit sharp, settles down really quick. Citrus is there for all of like 2 minutes, who cares? Saffron comes in pretty quickly, adds some sweetness with a nice warm undertone, and then that oak amber extreme with the kind of leathery, slightly smoky aspects, and then that ambery sweetness that comes in, which is actually a combo of that saffron. It lingers for a while and gives you like the top part of the sweetness, like the more slightly syrupy style of sweetness, and then you have that deeper, kind of richer sweetness and warmth underneath. Now, I know I said sweetness twice there. It's not an overly sweet fragrance or anything. It's just kind of two styles of sweetness that combine as it heads through the mid. It smells really pleasant. That's the part where you could come across tobacco-y, could come across more just the leathery amber aspect if you focus in on that, the woody aspect as well. And also, you know, at times I'll say as well, almost a little booziness in there. So it does have like some aspects that are very popular right now in men's fragrances pulled in and put there into the mid, definitely. But I don't think it smells exactly like anything else out there to me at all. And in the dry down, it's more woody than anything. So that sweetness, that lingers through the mid and maybe an hour or two into the dry down. But once that fades, it's a nice woody dry down with a touch of that leathery, slightly smoky aspect. And that's kind of how it comes across to me. And yeah, there are times as it dries down where I could say, you know, maybe it's a little bit of inspiration pulled from here and a little bit pulled from there. But I don't think, again, that it's close enough that I would say, oh, you know, this is basically that, just reworked. It's not that. Now that I've said that, I'm gonna wear it a few more times and I'm gonna go, oh my God, it actually is. but right now, I don't feel like it is. In terms of performance with this one, longevity is well above average. It sticks on your skin for a long time. Projection is really solid initially too. Once you hit the dry down, which is to be expected, it settles in a little bit closer to the skin, but still is a really solid performer all the way around. In terms of seasonality, this is for me more of like spring, fall, and also winter. During summer, I think I'd go something else because even though this is a Luna Rossa Ocean, it's actually not really fresh. I mean, at the end of the day, you have something here that has, you know, sort of a boozy sweetness, sweetness from the mid into the dry down. And while it's not overwhelming the way that it comes across, it's still not the type of fragrance where you smell it and you go, oh man, so uplifting and bright. Can't wait to wear that in 100-degree weather, 100-degree Fahrenheit weather. So yeah, summer, not for me. As far as daytime or evening use, leans a little more toward evening use, but obviously you can wear it during the day as well. And for me, overall, I like it. I like it. It smells very pleasant. I think that the mid is my favorite part. The opening is okay, but it doesn't really like leave an impression in my mind to where, you know, the first couple times that I've smelled that opening and, you know, had it develop, you know, it's not that type of opening, at least yet, where I smelled it and was just immediately like, oh God, I can't wait until this dries down. It's more like, okay, spray it on, and then you go, that's not bad. But the magic happens the longer it stays on your skin. I'm not sure to my own taste if the kind of like lemon forward opening does it quite as well for me. I think that, again, just my own taste, if you were gonna go with a more basic kind of citrus open, maybe lean more on the bergamot, I probably would have enjoyed that more, or even switch it to like grapefruit or something. But the lemon, you know, it hits you with that little sharpness off the top, and it's not quite as inviting as I would have liked. It's not bad. Again, it's not bad. It's just, it doesn't grab me, you know? But like I said, the citrus doesn't last that long. And once that gets out of the way, things open up a lot more and it smells much nicer. It's just kind of an opening, like, and then, oh, nice. Big drawback for this one, for a lot of people, is gonna be that price point, $175 for 100 mils, $55 more than the Eau de Toilette. To be fair, it's not really, you know, treading the same ground the Eau de Toilette did, so it's not one of those deals where if you own the EDT, you kind of own this. They're pretty different. I would never, you know, confuse one for the other. And while $175 for 100 mil is decently pricey, at least it's not elixir pricing. You know, at least it's not $180 for a 60 mil. It's $5 less than that and you get 40 mils more. So at least there's that. Unfortunately, I wonder if that means they're gonna come out with like Luna Rossa Ocean Elixir next year and be like, here's the $180 for the 60 mil. Here you go, thank you, enjoy. Hopefully not, but it wouldn't surprise me, I guess. Still though, 175, 100 mils. If you really love Luna Rossa Ocean, check it out. Obviously it's in stores, so it should be pretty easy. If you have one nearby, just stop in, give it a spray. Let it dry down, absolutely. Don't make a snap decision on this one. And maybe give it another spray and another wear, just to really make sure that you enjoy it before you spring for a purchase. Alternatively, it should pop up at discounters before too terribly long, I would think. My guesstimation for pricing on that at discounters, probably still over $100, but you should be able to save like, I don't know, 60 bucks or something, I would think, when it first pops up at discounters. So that is an option, of course, as always. That will do it for me. If you smell this one, let me know what you think about it. Again, it's available pretty much everywhere at this point. Thank you guys for hanging with me. Stay safe out there. I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you later.